is one thing for the administration to continually claim that immunity for telecom giants is actually necessary to keep America safe. It is quite another for Attorney General Michael Mukasey to cite a call from a safe house in Afghanistan to the U.S., a call before the attacks of September 11th about those attacks, implying that if the government had already shredded the Constitution then, the attacks might have been prevented. The claim is necessarily either false or it convicts the Bush administration of complete negligence. And as importantly, it comes up in the context of our third story in the countdown, indications that the White House may now be willing to negotiate on the electronic surveillance bill. House Majority Leader Steny Hoyer saying today that based on conversations with the Bush administration, there could be a compromise on extending FISA, the electronic surveillance legislation. And before we revisit what Attorney General Mukasey said, bear this in mind, that even before 9/11, FISA allowed warrantless eavesdropping when the subject was outside the U.S. and calls into the U.S. And yet Mr. Mukasey, speaking to the Commonwealth Club of San Francisco, said this: before 9/11, that's the call we didn't know about. We knew that there had been a call from some place that was known to be a safe house in Afghanistan, and we knew that it came to the United States. We didn't know precisely where it went. Then, as described by Glenn Greenwald of Salon.com, the Attorney General swallowed hard and appeared to tear up, adding, "We've got 3,000 people who went to work that day and didn't come home to show for that." Let's bring in Air America radio host, MSNBC political analyst Rachael Maddow. Good evening.
Hi, Keith.
Is there some option here that I've missed that either the government was guilty of malfeasance or Mr. Mukasey just made that up?
Well, do you remember when Alphonso Jackson, Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, who just resigned,
right,
he told a crowd in Houston that he had yanked a federal contract from a contractor who had been insufficiently enthusiastic about George Bush?
Of course.
When confronted about that, because that's illegal, his defense was, "Oh, don't worry, I was lying." At this point, that essentially is the place that we are in with Mike Mukasey right now. Oh, please let him have just been lying. Because if he was telling the truth here, if there really was a call from a known al-Qaeda safe house in Afghanistan to the United States before 9/11, which the Bush administration did not tap and trace, that is huge news. And we ought to get some answers about why we were left so unprotected and surprised on 9/11. Let's hope that he was just making that up.
And it requires, I mean, as I suggested last night, right now, somebody in the House or the Senate should be swearing him in to testify as to what the hell he was talking about.
Yes, exactly.
We need to know this because that's information that's not anywhere in the 9/11 report, nor apparently came up nowhere in the investigation.
And it should shock everybody to know that it was dropped parenthetically to make a political point in a speech in San Francisco by the Attorney General nearly 7 years after 9/11.
And underlying it in either event, this transparent falsehood, since the government did have the tools then that it has now, fill in the rest of that blank.
Yeah. The implication of Mukasey's story here is that these pesky restrictive FISA laws kept us from tapping that call from Afghanistan, kept us and blocked us from stopping 9/11. It's complete bullpucky. The laws then, the laws now, the laws since the FISA court has been in existence, the laws have said that you can tap without a warrant that kind of communication from outside the United States into the U.S., particularly if you knew it was an al-Qaeda safe house and it had a link to terrorism. What Mukasey said is either a terrible lie about the law, or it's a terrible admission about the Bush administration leaving us unprotected on 9/11.
Do you think, let's put two things together. We heard this book that's coming out about various elements in the 9/11 investigation and the quotes attributed to John Ashcroft saying, "Don't bother me with this. I don't want to hear about this al-Qaeda again," sometime in June, I guess it's June of 2001. If we put all these little strands together, the possibility that maybe Mukasey has the details wrong or but he's got a shred of something. He couldn't have made that up out of whole cloth. Something's in there. And there's all sorts of other strands. We know about the PDB that nobody paid any attention to. We know about the ambivalence towards listening to anybody left over from the Clinton administration. Richard Clark, to this day, I'm sure wakes up screaming in the middle of the night. Roger Cressy, everybody else. Yeah. Put it all together. Does it sound like this is simply guilt coming out at this point? That there is, at long last, some acknowledgement that these people were mailed it in the summer of 2001 and ignored the true crisis and have been inventing fake crises ever since to try to rationalize it. Okay, we're going to get the next one.
And the mentions of it are slipping out in unscripted moments at emotional crises points for people who joined the administration after all of that but are now in a position to know what had happened. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it certainly seems like that could potentially be what's going on.
And given that Mukasey was working as a judge, if I remember the timing of it, was working blocks from ground zero. All right. He also said that without telecom immunity, we face the prospect of disclosure in open court, the means and methods by which we collect foreign intelligence against foreign targets. Is there even a shred of accuracy in that one?
No, that's more bullpucky. Sadly, I mean, he's a federal judge, so he knows. Federal courts deal with classified information all the time. They have a whole bunch of different ways of dealing with it. They have closed courtrooms. They have ex parte communications. They hear things in judges' chambers. There's all sorts of different ways that courts have dealt with this. This is another situation where something going on in the war on terror, they're telling us, is completely unprecedented. It's something like we've never had to deal with before as a nation, whereas actually our courts have perfectly operable systems for dealing with classified information. There is obviously something that was wrong in our government at the time of 9/11 that left us unprepared for and surprised by 9/11. There is something that was deeply, deeply wrong. It was not the Constitution that was wrong.
We had intelligence we had the physical material. We had all the material there. We had no intelligence in the government, as in the brain.
Small eyes intelligence.
Rachael Maddow of MSNBC and Air America, great thanks. And from all of us here on Countdown, happy birthday.
Oh, thank you, Keith.